Good morning, afternoon, or evening. How y'all doing today? Welcome back to Mr. Moore's Algebra 2 class. Today we're going to continue with our equation journey, and we're going to talk about absolute value equations. Absolute value equations are very popular, very important, and used a lot in business, believe it or not. And an absolute value, gentlemen, is the distance from zero, which is represented with the symbol that I show you right here. It is a distance, guys. It is a distance. So the absolute value of any number will always be positive because it is a distance. But there are two sides to that coin. Solving absolute value equations is very easy, but you must remember that an absolute value has a positive and a negative side. For example, if I were to tell you that the absolute value of x, this variable x, equals 3, what are the possible values of that x? Yes, sir? Positive 3 and negative 3. Very good. Why? Well, let's investigate why there is this duality for absolute value. If x was negative 3 and I wanted to find the absolute value of negative 3, and being that the absolute value is the distance from 0, wouldn't negative 3 be 1, 2, 3 away from 0? If x is 3, though, isn't 3 also 1, 2, 3 away from 0? So in every absolute value, guys, there is a positive possibility and a negative possibility. Absolute value describes the distance from 0. So there's a duality there. There's a positive possibility and a negative possibility. Yes, sir. Correct. If we're just doing straight up absolute value calculations as such, like if I say, what's the absolute value of negative 7? It's 7. What's the absolute value of 8? It's 8. What's the absolute value of negative 3/5? 3/5. Because it is the actual distance from 0. Yes, sir. Now, that was the next thing I was going to say. Thank you, my brother. If I have negative absolute value of 7, well, that negative represents a negative 1 being multiplied to the absolute value of 7. So what this would mean is negative 1 times the absolute value of 7, which is 7, which equals negative 7. But the absolute value itself is always positive because absolute value is a distance from 0. Yes, sir?
So the absolute value bars are basically saying parentheses?
They're a type of parentheses, yes. They're a type of parenthetic notation is the proper phrase for it, yes. So if you had something like this, like let's say you had whatever, 2 minus 8 minus 12, an absolute value here. This would be 2 minus, the absolute value of 8 minus 12 is negative 4. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So this would be 2 minus 4, which would equal negative 2. So yes, you would always do what's inside the absolute value first, if you were just doing straight up evaluating. Okay? But today I want to talk about solving equations. But I like to always start out with the definition of absolute value, so you can understand that there is a positive possibility and a negative possibility for absolute value equations. So knowing that absolute value have two sides makes it much easier to solve absolute value equations and inequalities. We're going to talk about inequalities later on. For example, what are the solutions of absolute value of x plus 2 equals 9? Graph and check your solutions. You have to check your solutions because sometimes, gentlemen, you will solve for a value that does not work when evaluated. So you'll get an answer, but when you plug that answer back in, it actually does not make the statement true. It does not fulfill the equation. So therefore, it's not a solution, and it is called extraneous. Okay? That's what this word is here, extraneous. So an extraneous solution is a solution that you did solve for, straight up, legitimately. However, when you plug it in, it does not work. So that is called an extraneous solution. Now, just like everything I teach, I'm going to teach things in order. there's going to be a procedure to this. I strongly suggest that you have this order in front of you when you are completing homework. Because that way there won't be any guessing or any questioning. You'll know exactly what to do. So step one. Step one, it says isolate the absolute value. Whenever you have an absolute value equation, I don't care how complex or how simplistic, you want to get the absolute value alone. So in this case, I have a 2 that's being added to the absolute value, so I'm going to subtract 2 to both sides. Okay? And that's going to get the absolute value alone. Now, once I have the absolute value alone, gentlemen, I'm going to split the equation or inequality. I'm actually going a little ahead here because we're not in inequalities yet, but it's the same exact procedures. You're going to split the equation into a positive and a negative side. So once I subtracted the 2 to both sides, absolute value of x equals 7. Now I'm going to literally split that into 2 sides, guys. I'm going to have my positive side, which I call the mirror image. Why do I call it the mirror image? Because it is exactly the same as the original one without the absolute value symbol. Then you have the negative side. And the negative side is found by multiplying -1 to the non-absolute value side. Okay? And then we solve both equations. But let me explain that negative side again. For the negative side, you multiply -1 to the non-absolute value side. And then you solve each and you check your answer. And what did I put here? Let me just get this over here. This is just explaining again how I got the negative side. Excuse me. It states multiply the non-absolute value side by -1 for the negative side. Please note that if you're working with inequalities, you must flip the inequality sign of the negative side since you're multiplied by a negative. We'll get into that in more detail when we do inequalities, but these notes will work for both. So, this was a very simplistic one, very easy. But does everyone understand? And more importantly, does anyone have any questions? Because that is why I'm here. Yes, sir. Thank you, my brother. The answer is going to be now x equals 7 and x equals -7. Either or. Both can work. Let's plug it in and see if it works, brother. What's the absolute value of 7? What's 7 plus 2? So it works. What's the absolute value of -7? What's 7 plus 2? It works. Thank you so much for clarifying that, my man. No, thank you. Does that make sense? Gentlemen. Okay, there's always going to be 2 answers, my brother, except sometimes when you plug it in, they won't work, and then you have to list it as extraneous. But yes, I like to teach you more like there may not be 2 answers, but there's going to be 2 sides. It's going to be the positive and the negative. Yes, sir. Thank you. No, if one of them doesn't work, it's just extraneous. Well, it could be wrong as well, yeah. I mean, you always want to check your answer, right? Yeah. Could be wrong. But we're going to do some examples now. But before I do that, I want to make sure that these steps are clear, that you understand them, and we can move forward. Yes? All right, let's do it then. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Starting from 100 feet away, your friend skates towards you and then passes by you. She skates at a constant speed of 20 feet per second. Her distance from you in feet after t seconds is given by d equals the absolute value of 100 minus 20t. At what time is she 40 feet from you? Okay, this goes back to what we've already talked about. This is evaluating an equation. D is represented the distance. She's 40 feet from you. So they want to find the t. After how much time, after how many seconds is she 40 feet from you? Well, 40 equals absolute value of 100 minus 20t. Straight up. Is the absolute value alone? Yes. Is there anything being added to it? Okay. Is there anything subtracting from it? Is there anything being multiplied to it? Is there anything being divided by it? So, is the absolute value alone? Now, does that necessarily mean that the inside is not complicated? No. The inside can be as complicated as it wants. But when I ask, is the absolute value alone, is the actual absolute value alone? Does that make sense, my man? Because I know you were answering with, you thought it wasn't because you saw the 100 and the negative 20t. So I'm proud of you. Good job. But when it's alone, it's alone. Okay? So, we are alone. Let's split it. Positive side, negative side. Now, most of my students don't like to do that. They want to do it their way, the short way, the easy way, the quick way. That's a good way to get it wrong. Let's do it the right way. So the mirror image, 40 equals 100 minus 20t. And then we'll do the negative. Negative 40 equals 100 minus 20t. Mr. Morrow, why did you put a negative 40? Because I'm on the negative side. And when I'm on the negative side, I multiply the non-absolute value side by a negative. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, sir, my brother.
If you're on the positive side, wouldn't it be plus 20?
No, it's the mirror image. We talked about the mirror image, right? This is the mirror image. Everything's the same. You do not change any signs on the positive side. It is exactly the same as the original. The only thing that changes, my brothers, is on the negative side, the non-absolute value side gets multiplied by a negative 1. Thank you so much for that question. Thank you. So now let's solve. So I subtract 100 to both sides. I got negative 60 equals negative 20t. Divide by negative 20. Divide by negative 20. T equals 3. Let's go this way. Subtract 100 to both sides. That's negative 140 equals negative 20t. Divide by negative 20. T equals, come on, Morrow. T equals 7. Two answers. Do they work? I don't know. Let's see. Say 40, say 100 minus 20 times 3. Okay, 20 times 3 is 60. What's 100 minus 60? What's the absolute value of 40? 40 equals 40? It works. How about for when it's 7? This would be 100 minus 20 times 7. 100 minus 20 times 7, that's 100 minus 140, which is negative 40. What's the absolute value of negative 40? 40 equals 40. They both work. Does that make sense, my brothers? Promise. Okay. May I continue? Thank you. Okay. So let's check out this guy right here. All right. Is the absolute value alone? Okay. Positive, negative side. Positive side is the mirror image. 3x minus 1 equals 8. I don't change anything there. Negative side is 3x minus 1 equals negative 8. I multiply the non-absolute value side by a negative. Add 1 to both sides. 3x equals 9 divide by 3, x equals 3. Add 1 to both sides. 3x equals negative 7. Divide by 3, x equals negative 7 thirds. We have to check it though, brothers. We have to. What's 3 times 3? Minus 1. What's the absolute value of 8? 8 equals 8. That works. What's 3 times negative 7 thirds? Negative 7. Good job. What's negative 7 minus 1? What's the absolute value of negative 8? It works. Sir. Thank you. This is the time to ask, my brothers. This is the time. Thank you, sir. You don't have to show me how you checked it, but definitely check it because there may be an extraneous in there. And then if you don't point the extraneous out, you get half wrong. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
What would happen if it had like two absolute value like terms?
You mean absolute value on both sides? You choose one side to multiply by a negative. So let me just do it real quick. Let me see how many pages I have left. Hold on, brother. I think we're good. Oh, we're gonna get to it. Thank you so much for caring. All right. Now let's complicate things a little bit. Yeah. Oh, wait, did I skip one? No. Okay. Thank you, guys. All right. Is the absolute value here alone? No. I'm gonna divide 3. No. I gotta undo addition subtraction first. It's a two-step equation, guys. So I subtract 12 to both sides. I got 3 times 2x plus 9, absolute value, equals negative 2. Divide by 3. So I've got absolute value of 2x plus 9 equals negative 2 thirds. Does anyone see something that's a little fishy here? Does anyone see? Look at what we just did. Think about the definition of absolute value. Look at what that absolute value equals. Is there anything fishy there? Why is it not possible, my brother? No. You're caring. Who said that? It's a negative. Guys, can the absolute value of anything ever be negative? So whenever you have an absolute value equation that once you have gotten the absolute value alone, very important, once you get the absolute value alone, if that absolute value, I'm not being sarcastic, but I want to make sure I drive this home with you guys. Once it's alone, if it equals a negative, stop right there. No solution. No, there's no solution. It's not extraneous. Extraneous would be if I solved it, plugged it in, and it didn't work. This is straight up no solution because it is impossible for a distance to be negative. But you got to make sure that you get that absolute value alone first. You feel me here? Still, my brother. You cannot distribute. Do not distribute. Please do not. Please follow the directions that I'm giving you. Okay. Next, what are the solutions of absolute value of 3x minus 6 minus 5 equals negative 7? Good man, add 5. 3x minus 6 equals negative 2. Oh, no solution, guys. Again, once we get that absolute value alone, if that absolute value equals a negative, that's it. There's no solution, man. Done. Bye-bye. You feel me? Okay. Here, what do I got to do here, please, to get the absolute value alone? So I subtract 3 to both sides, my brothers. So I've got absolute value of 2x minus 1 equals 9. I can do this, right? So now I split up into the positive and the negative, guys. Positive is the mirror image. 2x minus 1 equals 9. Negative side, 2x minus 1 equals negative 9 because I multiplied the negative, the non-absolute value side by a negative. Add 1 to both sides. 2x equals 10. Divide by 2. X equals 5. Add 1 to both sides. 2x equals negative 8. Divide by 2. X equals negative 4. Please remember the answers can be negative. What cannot be negative is the absolute value cannot equal anything negative. And now let's plug it in. Let's check if 5 works. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 minus 1 is, absolute value of 9 is, 9 plus 3 is negative 4. 2 times negative 4 is, minus 1 is, absolute value is, 9 plus 3 is. Is that making sense, my brother? Sure, my brother. If one of the other ones does not work, Papo, that's when you put extraneous. Yes, sir, my man. Thank you.
Like on the test, like what would our answer be when we
Your answer would be this, my man. X equals 5 and comma negative 4. Or you can leave them separately like this, my man. And if one of them doesn't work, you write extraneous next to it. Thank you, son. May I continue? Any questions, guys? Okay. Now, for what my boy had asked. Great question, by the way. Whoa, 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 Mr. Morrow, what's going on here? You said the non-absolute value side for the negative side. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Here, just choose the right side as the negative side. Let me explain what the heck I just meant there. Got absolute value equals an absolute value. Positive side, negative side. Positive side is 8x plus 11 equals 6x plus 17. Negative side. You can choose whatever you want, but let's just stay consistent. Multiply the right side by a negative. So what that means is distribute a negative to that right side. So this will be 8x plus 11 equals negative 6x minus 17. Now let's solve, brothers. Minus 6x, 2x plus 11 equals 17. Subtract 11 to both sides. 2x equals 6. Divide by 2. X equals 3. Bada bing, bada boom. To the other side now. Add 6x to both sides. Again, these are all skills that we already learned. 14x plus 11 equals negative 17. Subtract 11 to both sides. 14x equals negative 28. Divided by 14. X equals negative 2. Let's see if it works, guys. Check 3 out. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 11 is 35. Absolute value of 35 is 35. 6 times 3 is 18. 18 plus 17 is 35. Absolute value of 35 is 35. So that one works. Done. See if negative 2 works. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. Negative 16 plus 11 is negative 5. Absolute value of negative 5 is 5. So let's try the other side. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Negative 12 plus 7 is 5. Absolute value of 5 is 5. It works. They're going to work most of the time. But you know that on the test I'm going to throw one that has an extraneous, right? You know that. Okay? So, last but not least, I believe. Yes. Okay. Actually, we got, yeah, it's okay. I got time. Next. I got x, absolute value of x minus 3 equals 2x plus 5 in absolute value. They're both alone. I can split up into my positive and my negative side. Positive side, x minus 3 equals 2x plus 5. Negative side, x minus 3 equals negative 2x minus 5. I'm going to distribute a negative 1 to this right side. I stay consistent. That way I never get confused. Let's solve. Subtract 2x to both sides. Negative x minus 3 equals 5. Add 3 to both sides. Negative x equals 8. Divide by negative 1. X equals negative 8. Add 3 to both, 2x, come on, Moral. 2x to both sides. 3x minus 3 equals negative 5. Add 3 to both sides. 3x equals negative 2. X equals negative 2/3. Let's see if they work. Negative a minus 3 is negative 11. Absolute value of negative 11 is 11. And negative 16 plus 5 is negative 11. Absolute value of negative 11 is 11. That works. Now, fractions. See if it's negative. If it's negative 2/3 works. So the value of negative 2/3 minus 3. Please try to remember, guys, I need a common denominator. My common denominator between 3 and 1 is 3. So I have to multiply a 3 to the denominator here and a 3 to the numerator, giving me negative 11/3, which absolute value of that equals 11/3. Now let's do the other side. I've got 2 times negative 2/3 plus 5. Well, 2 times negative 2/3, when you multiply fractions, it's numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So it's the absolute value of negative 4/3 plus 5 over 1. Common denominator here is 3. Multiply 3 to the denominator and to the numerator. So that gives me absolute value of 11/3, which is 11/3. So that works as well. Does that make sense, my brothers? Promise? Okay. Now I'm going to get to the hardest part for most students, but I pray that I do a good job today and I make this easy for you. A whitewater kayak paddle has a surface area of 650 square centimeters, plus or minus 60 square centimeters. Find the range of size for a kayak paddle. Okay. Whenever they give you these ranges problems, it's an absolute value equation. This is what businesses do to try to find marginal error, the availability of error. Do you guys think that every single cereal box has exactly the exact amount of cereal? Each one of them is exactly equal? Now, there's a little bit of a variance. That variance comes from this formula. Absolute value of x minus the desired, that's the goal, equals the change, which is also known as range. So if we look here, the goal of the surface area of a kayak paddle is 650 square centimeters. So x minus the goal of 650 equals the change. This could change plus or minus 60. So I put the change right here. So it's x minus the goal in absolute value equals the change or the variance or the range that is acceptable. And now it's Mickey Mouse Town. Plus side, positive side, negative side. So x minus 650 equals 60. Add 650 to both sides. X equals 710. The negative side, x minus 650 equals negative 60. Remember, I multiply the non-absolute value side by a negative. Add 650 to both sides, and that should be a 60. Add 650 to both sides, and x equals 590. And these are square centimeters, which you always have to label, guys, because if not, the reader doesn't understand what you're talking about. So what does that mean? That means that in any given day, if we're going to go buy a kayak paddle, okay, which you guys may not care about, but I love it. But anyways, if you go buy a kayak paddle, I can expect my paddle to be between 710 square centimeters all the way to 590 square centimeters, hoping that the goal will be 650, but it could be anything in between these two. Does that make sense, guys? Sure, my brother. It breaks up the positive side and the negative side. Okay. Any questions on the math here? Okay, last one and we're out. We're out. Wood sold at a lumber yards are not all the same size, and that's for sure. I do a lot of handiwork, and you're never gonna ever find a 4x4 that's really a 4x4. It'll be like a 3 and 15/16 by a 3 and 17/18. It'll never be exact. I don't know why, but it is what it is. Since machines have allowable errors, cut wood, cut B plus or what? Cut wood could. Maybe I should learn how to write. Could be plus or minus 0.15 feet. Okay? Find the range of a size of a piece of pine that has a length of 12 feet using the absolute value equation. Well, it's x minus desired, which is 12 feet, equals 0.15. X minus desired equals the range or the change, okay, the variance. Now we split it up into my positive side and my negative side. X minus 12 equals 0.15. X minus 12 equals negative 0.15 for my negative side. Add 12 to both sides. X equals 12.15 feet. Add 12 to both sides. X equals 11.85 feet. Please remember when you're working with decimals, 12 has a decimal at the end. You got to line up the decimals when you're adding or subtracting. And this is a negative 15 and a positive 12. So the signs are opposite. So what do? You subtract and keep the sign of the largest absolute value. So you've got 11.85 because I borrowed one here. And it's going to be positive because there's more positives than negatives. Does that make sense, my brothers? You sure? Any questions at all, my brothers? All right. Thank you so very much. I hope you learned a lot. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.